All right, hello everyone. Welcome to our October Training Tuesday for OU Campus. Today's topic is advanced snippet options. During the presentation, all participants will be in a listen-only mode as this session is being recorded. If you have a question during the presentation, please use the Q&A function found at the bottom of your screen, and I'll attempt to answer your questions throughout the presentation. If there are any remaining questions I can't answer during the webcast, I will provide you an answer via email. So I will be your presenter today. My name is Barb McQuillan. I am the training supervisor over here at OmniUpdate. So let's jump right in. When we're talking about snippets, we're going to be focusing on table transformations and really discussing some of the things that you can set up on your snippets to make the editing experience that much easier. So our plan for today, we're going to talk about adding helper text into the snippet table itself. We're going to talk about locking some of the table cells. We'll talk about adding a preview image. And then we're going to talk about two kind of more advanced options, a table separator and select list. So I'll give you an idea of each one of these, what they look like as we go through them, so you can kind of get an idea of where we're going towards. And then I'll walk you through how to set it all up. So talking about helper text. When we're looking at a snippet, it's essentially this little bubble of instructional text. So it gives you the ability to tell your content editors exactly what they should be editing or adding or changing in each one of these sections here. These will probably be set up if you have a newer implementation from our Pro Services team, but if you ever want to customize or change some of the content, you'll be able to see where you can do that. So let me walk you through that. So over here, I'm already logged into OU Campus. I've already landed on this lovely page here for our Training Tuesday. So let me go ahead and open up this content region here. And we'll insert an example snippet. I'm a little zoomed in here, so as you can see in the V11 interface, my toolbar is adjusting for the size. But essentially on my very bottom row, my little puzzle piece, there's my snippet. Created my category for Training Tuesday examples here, and we'll take a look at this accordion. So when I first inserted here, you're going to notice I have no helper text here. I do have my caption bar across the top, a couple of table headers, and then some table data, but no instructions for my editor about what they should be putting into each one of these sections. So that particular piece and having that information presented is controlled using CSS in the editor itself. So going to Contact, I'm going to go ahead and open Pages in a new tab. So that way I can navigate to the file that controls the CSS inside the editor, and I can customize it there. So clicking on this second tab, from the root of my site, inside of underscore resources, inside of OU, and inside of editor, I have a file called WYSIWYG.css. This is a CSS file that's controlling display information inside your editor. So if you have some sections of your site where maybe you have white text inside the editor, by default, it's a white background. So that becomes very difficult to edit in. So you can use this file to adjust the background color for just that one editable region. So your white text appears on a color background. It's easier to see. If you do already have any helper text set up, you will find them inside this file. I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom, and we'll take a look here, starting on my line 81. Let me change the coloration here, maybe make it a little bit easier to see. I'm a fan of Cobalt. There we go. I'll make it a little bit bigger as well. So inside my sandbox, I had two table transformation snippets already created here, so you can kind of see the way that we used to build out these CSS rules. So essentially on the snippet itself, it is a table with a particular class. And then we essentially dug into each one of those individual levels to find the appropriate TD cell. And we actually did target specific ones at that. Now, we've done it a little bit differently now. So rather than targeting it as this specific chain of different nodes, if I scroll down here and I'll uncomment this, we're now using an attribute called data name on our individual TD cells, which allows me to target a little bit easier. So I don't have this structure here as I'm going down through each of the levels of the HTML. I can simply target the table with the class and then that TD. Let me go ahead and open up snippets in a new tab so I can show you the source code of this snippet. We can pull all of that together. So here we go. Here's my table with a particular class, OU Accordion Advanced. So over in my CSS, that's what I'm targeting initially. And then for each one of my TDs, the actual data cell that's going to be accepting information, I just have this attribute that I'm calling data-name, and I'm giving it a particular value. So I have a row color, I have a content, and a header. So that's what I'm using to target here. There's my content, or yeah, there's my header, and there's my content. You'll notice right after that, I have this little colon before, so that's my CSS role that's just putting this block of content that I'm about to type out before that table cell. So it'll essentially float to the top of that particular table cell. And then I can customize what the text looks like. So from here, I do have this already set up. I am going to save this, and it is a CSS file. So I do need to publish up to my production server. Go ahead and use my version description and publish out here. Perfect. So back to my original tab here where I had my table set up. I'm going to go ahead and save this so that way my table is included here. Now when I open up my editable region, I'll be able to see, let me zoom out just a little bit, there's all my helper text. So each one of these individual cells is now being targeted because of that data-name attribute. And then I can insert information here. So something else that I have seen in even other more recent implementations is in addition to a data name, I sometimes see an additional attribute here. So let's say I have a particular cell that is designed to accept a link, or a particular cell that is designed to accept an image. You could create a data-type attribute, and then you could create a CSS rule for all of the table cells in all of your table transformation snippets that has a data type of image. So it's kind of like creating a set of default helper text values. So you could have those defaults that could be used across all of your different snippets, and then you'd only need to build out the individual rules. Let's come back here. For the individual table cells that need something a little bit more specific or something a little bit more descriptive. So I have a question here that says, why use data attributes instead of CSS classes for the TD elements? You could use the CSS classes for it. It is just another way to be able to target it. The nice thing about a data attribute is that it doesn't really have any meaning to the HTML itself. It is just a way to be able to target. So it's a way to make sure that you're not accidentally conflicting with any classes that may already exist inside your implementation. But if you are very familiar with the CSS that your implementation is using and you're very comfortable with being able to create classes on those TDs, you could. It absolutely is targetable that way. I like the data name because there's no confusion there. It is absolutely being used specifically for this purpose. Okay, so that in a nutshell is how we're able to get some of that helper text onto our different table transformation snippets. Let's take a look at this next option that we have, and this is going to be locking table cells. So I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but I've definitely had times where I thought my cursor was in the right place, but it was actually in one of these table headers or the caption across the top, or I was in a table cell where the XSL wasn't pulling information in. And now I'm editing that cell without getting the output that I was hoping for. So what you can do is you can lock individual table cells in your table transformation snippets, so your editors can't edit them at all. So there's no confusion about, well, which cell am I adding things into? I know which ones I can click into and which ones I can't. So back over here into OU Campus. We're going to go ahead back into my content snippet. I'm essentially going to add an attribute here into any of the table cells that I do not want edited. So taking a look again at this table transformation snippet, I have my table node. My caption is creating this big bar across the top. And then each of these with the lighter gray, those are over here. Those are THs. So there's my table header here, or my table header here. So I can go ahead and add in an attribute. So why don't I add the attribute here onto my heading and content, but I'll leave my accordion row color still editable, so I can kind of demonstrate what it looks like when it is or is not editable. So down here on line 15, I'm going to go ahead and add this attribute. It is a class that is called MCE, capital N, non, capital E, editable. This class is going to be picked up by the editor itself, the WYSIWYG, and then the WYSIWYG will be able to recognize this particular cell should not be editable or interacted with. So I'm going to go ahead and save my snippet. Now remember, when you make edits and changes to your snippet code, when a snippet is placed on your page, it is copied from this original source and pasted onto the page. So the snippet that I have here is still using the old source code. So I'm going to save, I'm going to refresh. In order to get those non-editable cells, I'm going to need to pull that snippet down once again. So I'll go ahead and open up that editable region. I'm going to place my cursor. Notice I'm going to place my cursor all the way here in this little teeny tiny space so I can hit enter. One of the advanced options I'm going to show you in just a little bit is how to add a table separator. So that way you can more easily get above or below tables that are on your inside your editable region. But so here we go. So here I am underneath. We'll go ahead and insert that snippet again. And now this time, my accordion row color, I did not lock, but my heading, I can't click into. My content, I can't click into. I can't edit those particular cells. So nice quick way to just lock those cells to make sure that your editors are editing the appropriate cells and not accidentally making edits to cells that they shouldn't be in. All right, continuing down, other things that we may want to do in order to make that editing experience even nicer has to do with adding a preview image. So right now, the way table transformations are set up is when I'm going to insert it, I get this little preview on the right-hand side that's going to render the HTML that it finds in there. So if my snippet is flat HTML, it'll render the way the HTML displays. My table transformation snippets are a little bit rougher to kind of understand what it is that I'm about to insert because I'm literally just getting a preview of a table. I don't see the rendered version after it's passed through the XSL. So we can kind of bypass that table display and instead include a preview image. I am saying image. It does require an actual image file. So we'll go ahead and save that here. So essentially what I'll need to do is insert my table here onto my page and take a screenshot. Back to my pages list, I have a folder that I've created here. When you're actually creating preview images for your snippets, you're probably going to want to keep them probably inside like an underscore resources folder, somewhere like that, where they're all going to be in one central location. I just placed it here to make it a little bit easier for my navigation as I'm showing things off to you though. And it literally is just a picture. So it's a screenshot of that particular accordion. So now that I have the screenshot, I'm going to want to publish it out because I am going to use a fully qualified URL for that image. So back over inside my content snippets, let's go ahead and open up this. So right now, everything that's inside here is the table code itself. What I'm going to do is up here above my table, I'm going to add some styles. I'm going to add an image node up here, and I'm basically going to hide the table, but make the image visible. I created another snippet where I already have that code. So I'm going to cheat and just copy this code over, and then I'll explain to you what we have going on here. Okay. So here at the top, I have a style node. So it's just CSS style. And in here, I'm essentially giving the table a display of none. And I'm giving the image an absolute position. I'm giving it a width of 100%. So this will allow me to essentially hide the table, make the image visible. I'm adding a second node in here, the actual IMG, with the source for that image that I just published out. It does need to be a fully qualified URL here. An important note on this, if you are new in OU Campus and you're still publishing out to a dev domain, the dev domain goes in here so that way the preview images work while you're getting everything ready and set up for your go live. When you go live, remember your dev domain is going to change to your live domain. Find and replace does not target the source code, the original code in here inside content snippets. So you will need to update the domains from the dev domain to the live domain after you go live to make sure that all of those preview images are updated as well. So we're going to add these two nodes in, but these nodes are not something that I want included on the live page. So when it gets dropped into the editable region, I want these two nodes to get stripped out. That's what this attribute does. Data-mce-bogus equals 1. It's essentially telling the editor that this node is a bogus node. Don't actually copy and paste this one in when you drop it inside the editable region. So let's go ahead and save. Back over to my page. We'll open up that editable region again. Let me start by just deleting everything out. So I have some nice blank empty source code in here. So I can just prove to you guys that none of those bogus nodes are coming over. When I go to enter the snippet into this editable region, I now get that nice little preview image. So I actually get to see what it should look like when it is rendered out. Ooh. We'll go ahead and insert. Now, when I open up my code on the page, notice the first thing that gets dropped in is the table because those other two nodes have been stripped out. So all of that is taken care of. The only thing that actually makes it inside of the PCF page itself is the table, which will get rendered through the XSL. Cool. All right, so that walks us through using our preview images. The next piece that I want to show off to you guys is using the table separator. So if you have an implementation that is pre-table separator, sometimes it gets a little tricky to get your cursor above or below a table. So if your table is the only thing inside this editable region, I can't really click above it or below it. I can put my cursor over to the left and hit enter to be able to get a space up here. I can put my cursor over to the right and hit enter to get a space down here. So it is possible to be able to get above or below. But if you don't have anything else inside this editable region, it can be a little tricky, especially depending upon how wide this particular region is or how comfortable your content editors are kind of working with that. So the table separator essentially gives you this clickable space above and below. And when you click on this, it will automatically insert a non-breaking space wrapped inside p tags. So you will be able to have that space automatically inserted. You don't have to play that game with cursor goes exactly here and then you exactly shift it over. So on our support site, there are detailed explanations about what source code you need, where it needs to be placed. So all of that is already detailed on our support site. I'm just going to walk you through what I have set up here so that way you can see it. So essentially, we'll scoot this over. I'm going to open up one more tab here under content pages because I'm going to be placing code inside of my common.xsl. So from the root of my site, inside underscore resources, inside XSL, inside my common.xsl. Scrolling down here on line 61, and I have a bunch of different code on here, but this is the table separator. It is essentially, we'll comment this back in, an XSL if statement. So this statement on the support site looks a little bit different than what I have here. And that's just because my implementation is a little bit older. So it didn't have the variable that's used on the support site. If you don't have the variable is edit, that's fine. You will have the variable OU action. So this is just saying when that PCF page is in action mode. If it is in an action mode, then insert this link inside the head code of the page itself. If it is not in edit mode, so if I'm previewing it, if I'm publishing it, if I'm doing a version compare, any of those things, this particular line will not be included. So you don't need to worry about this link getting then published out to your live page. It won't. It is only going to exist when the page is in edit mode. So I need that there, and continue to scroll down on line 108. I'm also going to add in one more here. So this here, again, only when I'm in edit mode, is going to add in some JavaScript that I'm pulling down from our CDN. So it's coming directly from the Omni Update global sources. This particular table separator does require jQuery of 1.5 or higher. I actually already have that as part of my design here. So that's already included, but if you do not have jQuery as part of your design, you are going to want to make sure that you include at least version 1.5 in order for this to work appropriately. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save my common.xsl from here. Back over to my page, I'm going to delete out everything that I have here. So I have a completely empty region. We'll see. Get that there, and we'll do a quick refresh. Good. So opening up this space here, I'll go ahead and insert that snippet again. Now, notice, oh, I have that little pop-up. Let's kind of click off of it. There we go. So now I have my table separator here. So this particular option here, this bar to click to insert, this will appear whenever the table transformation is the first or the last element inside an editable region. So I'll be able to get an additional bar underneath it. It'll also appear anytime I have two tables that are bumped up right next to each other. So if my two table transformations are back to back and I want to be able to insert something between them, I'll get this additional little bar here. So looking at my source code, notice that in this particular region, that table is the first element that I have here. Cancel. If I go ahead and click on that table separator, my cursor gets placed up here at the top. And opening up that source code again is giving me this PE tag, and then inside of that is my non-break space. It gives me this nice beginning space to be able to start typing things out there. Good. Additional things that you can do with this lovely table separator. So the way it is set up right now, it's literally just giving me space. It's giving me kind of this option to be able to get a little bit more space between them. But you can have it do all sorts of other fancy things. Let me show that to you. I have a snippet in here that is intended to be put inside another snippet. So I essentially have like a slide holder, and inside that slide holder, individual slides should be placed. So let me go ahead and insert this slide holder here. And this is a situation that I see whenever we have implementations that are very, very detailed, have a lot of variety. Oftentimes I'll see a container snippet and then other snippets that go inside of it. So notice on this, I do have little table separator here. But inside of this slider holder, I'm only supposed to have slide snippets. That's the only thing that should be placed in here. So what we can do is we can configure it. So when I click, it gives me another slide. And I click, and it gives me another slide. That's an attribute that you can add onto a parent that is wrapping this slide. So let me show it to you. I'm going to go ahead and repurpose this last tab here. I'll go back to my snippets list. My individual slide is its own snippet with a table class of OU slide. My slide holder has the class of OU slider. And then inside there, I have my first starting slide here. On the node that is wrapping it. So in this case, on that TD, on that cell that wraps this slide, I have this attribute called data-table-separator-options. And I have an attribute in here called clone. This clone attribute is what we were just seeing. When I click on the table separator and it has this particular attribute wrapping it, it will clone the slide that's inside of it. So I'll be able to duplicate this OU slide every time I click on that. Some other attributes that are available in here: empty. So if I did a clone space empty here, this will clone my slide, but is going to empty all content from inside any of the TDs. So if we come back to my page here, notice I have an image to start and some content over here. If I want the first one to kind of give me the example, but the rest of them to come in empty, I can use this empty attribute. So everything inside of the TDs, this, and my P tag here, this, those will be stripped out when another slide is placed in. The last attribute that I can put in here is called disable. Ooh, that's not how you spell it at all. Disable. And it essentially disables the table separator option. So it won't give me that little bar. So if there are particular setups where you get one slide in here, that is all that goes in here, I don't want any other slides, anything else in here, you can do this. So it basically gives you this one space that is going to be skipped when the table separator JavaScript is being applied. Awesome. All right. The last neat option that I want to show you guys is select lists. So sometimes for your snippets, you may have a cell that is going to take very specific input, or you're going to want to control exactly what the content editor has the option of in a particular cell. In that case, you can use a select list. It allows you to turn the table cell essentially into a drop-down. So your content editor is presented with options, and from there, they choose the option that they want. So coming back over to our example, let's scroll back up here. So notice here in my accordion, I have this accordion row color. If I change this here, maybe to red, and I save, it's going to take my accordion, it's going to change the background color of the row. Now, because this is just an open text field, people could put in whatever they want here. So you now have the option of people taking care or taking control of what this color is going to be. It may be outside of your branding. And it also invites the option for having things that are wrong. So maybe someone tries to put in a hex code or an RGB value, which would both be accepted here, but they type it wrong, or they have the wrong digits, the wrong number. So now you're just inviting errors because this is an open text field. So instead of doing that, I want to make this particular field a set of drop-down options. So let's talk about how you do that. Back inside my comment.xsl, just like with the table separator, there are two things that I'm going to uncomment from here. So scrolling up on my line number 67, there we go. Again, whenever I am in edit mode, I'm going to be pulling down this particular set of CSS. And scrolling down here, again, another set of JavaScript. So all of these resources, the CSS, the JavaScript that I am showing you here inside my comment.xsl are being pulled down from ArcCDN. So you guys don't have to have anything additional loaded into your sites. This reference will work for you. So I'll go ahead and save. Again, with the select list, you do need the jQuery 1.5 or better. So if you're planning on adding just this, if your design doesn't have it, you will need reference to it. All right, so that gives me the ability inside of the editable region. Now I actually need to build out what that drop-down list is going to be. So back to content snippets. Let's go ahead and open up my accordion again. So there are a couple of different ways you can specify what the options will be. You can do it in line right here on the particular TD table cell, or you can do it as a separate JSON file. I will show them both to you, but we'll start by doing a just in line here. So let's say for this TD, there's my row color. I'm going to add an attribute here called data select list. And then inside the quotes here for the value of it, I'm essentially going to give a key value pair. So when I do my key value pair, I'm going to put in what the key is, or the actual CSS rule, the value. So in this particular case, I'm going to use the word red. I'm going to do colon, and then I'm going to type in the friendly name for it. So what my editors will see here is the word red with a capital R. Now, any of the values that I have in here, my key value pairs, are going to be comma separated, which makes this a little bit tricky. Because this is an RGB value, it is already comma separated. So what I need to do, instead of having this RGB value, I need to have the hex equivalent for it to be able to put it in here as my key value pair. So I have done the research, and then I'm going to type 84AAC9, and this is going to be blue. And then maybe we'll do one more, 404040. That's purple. I can have a default value right here inside of my angled brackets. It doesn't even necessarily have to be one of these, but I'm going to remove it for now to have almost like a requirement of people to be able to choose it. So I'll go ahead and hit save. Back over to my page here. Again, any of the snippets that are already on this page, we're pulling in the original source code. They don't have that data select list attribute yet. So I'll need to reinsert in order to get it. So we'll go ahead and save that editable region, quick refresh. Now we'll open up this region and we'll grab that table transformation snippet. Insert. So now here's my click here to select an option. Now I have my red, my blue, my purple. When your editor's choosing, they get this nice friendly name, so they don't have to memorize that the pound 848AC9 is blue. They actually get presented with something that makes a little bit more sense to them. So when you have a smaller list, it works like this to be able to have it inside of the snippet itself, or if it's a list that you're only going to be using in one particular snippet. If you have lists that you're going to use maybe multiple times across, or there's something that is a much larger list, it behooves you then to turn it into a JSON. So let's use my table separator here for me to insert an example where we have some more options here. So in this particular case, I essentially have a snippet that is allowing me to choose a particular major from a list. So rather than relying upon my content editors to type out each one of those majors and make sure the spelling is right and all the rest of it, each one of these is a list. So I know that I'm going to have everything populated correctly with the correct information in here. So this is not manually typed out inside that particular snippet. Let me show you what is in that snippet. So back to content snippets inside my Training Tuesday examples, my select list example. So this particular TD, data cell, does still have the same attribute, data-select-list, and it's equal to, and it's a singular word here. By default, the snippet JavaScript is going to be looking at a particular location for a JSON file. So all I need to do is name the file name here. And then all of the pieces will be pulled together. So by default, let me show you where that is. Content pages. Yeah, that's fine. From the root of my site, inside _resources, inside of OU, inside of editor, I have a folder here called select lists. So it is pre-programmed to be looking in this location. And then I'll have all of the JSON files at this level here. So there's my majors.json. That's what it's looking for, majors. So if I open up this file here, I'll be able to see here are my options basically presented as an array. And then again, I can have in here key value pairs. In this particular case, I didn't need a difference between the key and the value, so I just have a singular value for it. This here is a blank with a display for the editor of no major. So if I wanted to be able to have a key value pair here, it still works using that semicolon the same way it did when we were looking at manually typing it out inside the snippet. So you can have that set up that way as well. All right, for these last two examples, again, I kind of breezed through, yep, I uncomment this code and look, this list is already created for you. There are step-by-step detailed instructions on our support site for both of those with specific code blocks. So when I put up this Trading Tuesday on our support site, I will link you to those pages on our support site as well. So that way you can easily get through all of that information and get that incorporated into your site. All right. So that essentially walks us through all of those fun options that have to do with creating some more advanced options on your table transformation snippets. I'm going to invite you guys to ask any questions that you might have right now. As you're typing, let me go ahead and give you some information about our next Training Tuesday. It is going to be held on December 15th. Keep an eye on that date. Normally our Training Tuesdays are the last Tuesday of the month, but because of the holiday schedule in November and December, we're going to have one more Training Tuesday this month. It will be mid-December on December 15th. It is a Tuesday. And we're going to be talking about user permission levels inside of OU Campus. All right, so it looks like we did have a question come in. Let's take a look at that. Is there any way to ensure these types of tables are accessible? So the tables that you are putting into table transformation snippets are only going to be seen and viewed inside of OU Campus. There's XSL in the background that allows you to have a different rendering when it gets published out. So if you're talking about making sure the table that is viewed inside of OU Campus is accessible, that's all controlled inside the source code of the snippet itself. So you would essentially need to construct a table here that has all the appropriate accessibility requirements, scope and things like that. There is no requirement inside the snippet source code for that because it is just a flat source code editor. If you're talking about the final rendered piece on your live site being accessible, now you're getting into the XSL itself to make sure that the rendering that is being built by the XSL is accessible. So again, there's no way to require that because you're now just building an open source code editor. But those would be two places that I would recommend looking at and making sure that the code that you're putting in is accessible. We have a question here about can a preview image be created for a component? So good question. Inside the editable region, if I go to insert a component, I wonder if I have something here. So right now, the way that it's set up, it is displaying really just this particular icon for the component. I do believe that is currently set up in the platform just to be the icon, but I can loop back with our development team on it. The only way to be able to see kind of a preview of what it would be is after it's inserted and you put information in here. Oh my goodness, where's the information? You can have it preview inside the editable region. So if your component is HTML, you can see it here inside the editable region rather than seeing the blue pill. But the actual preview image itself, I don't think we can play that fancy trick that we did with the snippets, but I will take a look and see if there are any other options to be able to get a preview image in here. It's a good question. Question here about what advantages do these snippets have over components? That is the question. So it comes down to really the editing experience that you're providing to your editors and the output necessary for it. When we're talking about, let me clear everything out here. When we're talking about adding in a component, you have control over what questions are provided to your editors, what type of field they're filling in. In this case, I specifically have an image chooser. I've specifically stated you need to be inside this folder. So you have a lot of control over what your editors are going to be inputting. Other nice things about components is that components can work in flat HTML. So you don't have to have XSL background in order to build a component. The point where components begin to find their limitations is when you have a piece of content like an accordion. Oftentimes for an accordion, you're not going to have every single page where you place that accordion with the same number of rows. In this case, my accordion comes in with 3 rows, and I can edit it and literally just to insert an additional row, insert after. So this would now be, that's not how you spell it, but row 4. And the XSL can find it. Ooh, what did I just do? I broke the world, guy. Oh. So this particular accordion, I built out specifically for this Training Tuesday. So I obviously did something on the XSL that broke its ability to do that. That's me. Here's the original sandbox accordion. 3 rows. We'll add in that 4th row. There we go. So now I can easily add in a 4th row. This ability to add in additional pieces of content is really helpful for certain types of design elements, accordions, tabs, sliders, cards, things like that, where you're going to have a variable number of those items on the page itself. At this time, components cannot take a block of content and repeat it as necessary. There are ways to work around it. There are ways to essentially provide your editor with all of the possible options and then remove the ones that don't need to be there. But that at that point requires XSL to do. So when I create a component, it is flat code. So let's take a look at that student spotlight. It is flat HTML here. So I can't have, say, this div repeated every single time I add an additional image. It is going to be just this div, just this once. It's something that our product team is looking at to be able to include that ability to have repeat code blocks in components, but it's not something that exists right now. So that in a nutshell is the advantage that table transformation snippets have over components. You can create the XSL to repeat blocks of code when necessary, so you could have additional of these design blocks. Question, is there a way to set a random number function to create unique ID values on each slide of a slider without knowing how many slides the user will use? An excellent question. I want to say yes, because I'm pretty sure the XSL for our original snippet or our original accordion had something like that. Let's look. Accordion. Nope, not this one. I may be thinking of the one on our support site. Let me take a look into that. I know there are functions that allow you to be able to create random numbers. It is just a matter of making sure that it would work for the XSL that you're creating there. So I am pretty sure that we use it on the support site accordions. So let me see if I can dig that out for you. All right. Any other questions? Additional question. Yes, there's function that I think generate ID. Yep, I scrolled up and then I realized what I was doing. There it is. So I basically have inside my accordion this XSL variable. Thank you very much for providing that. There's my XSL variable. I'm giving it this name of unique, and we're using this function here for generate ID. So it is able to create its own ID there. Perfect. Thank you very much. All right. Other questions? Okay. Well, I want to thank you all for attending our Training Tuesday today. As I said, our next one will be December 15th. Please keep an eye on that holiday schedule. We're going to be covering user permission levels inside of OU Campus. All right. Thanks so much, guys. Enjoy the rest of the day.